1 + 1 = 3 in my world. Powerful formula. And I got it from a book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, in which he states, no two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third, invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. 1 + 1 = 3. Raw 4.
99-1084. Please stand by.
Hey, yo, you know it's Raw 4. Get your mind set right.
Yo. Good morning and welcome to Raw F4, where our mission remains the same and it's simple. Change lives by optimizing minds. I've been trying to practice this smile. It's like a Duchenne smile, where they say if you use your eyes when you smile, it actually gives off a more sincere, positive emotion. So it's a practice and an art. I don't think I got it down good. My wife and I have been doing that now for like the past month since I read about it. And that's the power of 1 + 1 = 3. I find information, I share it in my relationships, boom, right? We're creating a third positive energy source that we just use for this world. And that's what we're gonna talk about today, how 1 + 1 = 3 heightens and increases your self-value. I thought that self-value last week, touching on that, was a monstrous tip, or a monstrous topic, I should say. And it resonated with me. It always resonates with me. And my purpose here to serve is to really get deep into how I have really sucked at life for the 41 years I've been here. And that's relative. You know, I don't want it to make it sound all terrible, but there's a richness that I've achieved in my life that isn't tied to dollars. And not that I don't have, I'm by no stretch, trust me, am I rich financially, but I did order myself a pair of Gucci shoes for a big meeting I got coming up on Wednesday. And so I reference that just to say I live pretty well. I have no complaints. But my wealth for life is not just driven financially. Sure, yes, I do like great things. I think we have to just be honest about that. And I have to be honest about that and sincere from the perspective of, you know, I make my money to spend my money however I want to spend it. And that's just me. My wife is the same way. But I reference all that because this past week was a heavy reflective week for me and my world. My kids were off for spring break, and so we used that time, you know, in and around work to do a lot of things that broke up the routine, give them some exposure, influences to different things. And that was really, really cool. And a lot of what transpired over this week was my daughter, who's a teenager, trying to link up with some of her friends. And some of her friends' parents are receptive and open, very open. Like, hey, would you like our kids to meet up? We can leave them in the mall for an hour or two and then pick them back up. I think that's a little bit deep. I don't like leaving my child in the mall right now. I know that sounds overprotective, but that's just what it is. Anyhow, those relationships still are super important because for me or my wife and I to appreciate the expansion of our daughter evolving out into the world, or our children in general. My son's a little younger, he's 10. Exploring and seeing these new things, we have to be open and receptive to the possibilities. And part of what we do to be open and receptive to the possibilities are create relationships naturally with the parents of anyone who is affiliated with our children so that we can expand upon that relationship. 1 + 1 = 3. And in and around one of these specific relationships, there's a family where we're building a very nice friendship. I call it a friendship where it's somewhat of a blended, it's not somewhat, it is a blended family. The parents were divorced, so sometimes we're talking to the mother, sometimes we're talking to the father. I've gotten closer with the father. I'm a male, he's a male. So right, I don't mean to make that sound chauvinistic in any way, but I do think when you're leading a relationship from a parenting perspective, I interact directly with the father. My wife leads the interaction with the mother. That's just how we do things. Judge it, whatever. I just think it's a better way to kind of optimize things. Anyhow, as part of this evolving relationship, we invite the father of one of my daughter's friends over to our home because we went to the escape room on Saturday. And when we went to the escape room, we thought, let's have my daughter's friend over for dinner. And then we'll all go together to the escape room and we'll go for ice cream after, and we'll drop the young lady off back to her house. As part of that, I said, hey, when you drop, I told the father, when you drop your daughter off, feel free to come inside. We'll have a conversation. You can have some pizza with us or whatever, and then we'll go about our business. The reason why this is relevant, and this is also the power of 1 + 1 = 3, because my wife and I haven't always been on this wavelength. The gentleman gets into my house, invite him in, we start having a conversation. He's an English teacher, so I love language, if you can't tell. I know I curse a lot, but I really try to extend my vocabulary out and go deep into how words can impact my message and my contribution in life. I'm just big on words. So this gentleman is super smart, super savvy, speaks so well, and has great thoughts about, and he's always about my, maybe a little bit older, in his mid-40s. Great view and perspective on life. And he's very witty, and he's very sharp, and he's just bouncing all these things off about how difficult things can be sometimes as a teacher, kids and how they're brought up, parents and how they interact or don't with teachers, and his contribution in that space. And naturally, because of who I am today, I was able to spit back some of my opinions, which my wife called me on in the middle of the conversation. And she told the gentleman, she's like, listen, as you're listening to him preach, quote unquote, because he asked, hey, are you a minister? I'm like, no, I work in fucking IT. I'm just a logical dude with a lot of opinions on self-worth and self-value. My wife interjects and says, hey, for lack of a better term, forgive Jeff. Not that she's apologizing, but the power of this is he's like born again. And you can laugh at that. You can say it sounds cliche. You might even get offended. And at one point in my life, had my wife interjected that way, I wouldn't have seen the power and the beauty of it. I would have been insulted and offended and might have been like, yo, what you back off. You don't need to speak for me. But her message was simple. He's born again, meaning he's been through a lot. And she said to me after the conversation, I want to get into what she said before I make it seem like this is also just me spitballing or coming up with a conclusion. She said, hey, I think you had, and this was after the gentleman left, and it was a great conversation, great interaction. We had a great time. And we talked for like 40 minutes, while, which is, for us, we don't just invite people in the home, man. We have like that vampire zombie apocalypse mentality. Like if we invite you in, if you're old like me, 40s, like Lost Boys, remember Lost Boys, where you invite the vampire in, they can just suck your blood. I keep a very heavy energy force field around my house. Just I just don't, hey, come in. Anyway, after that entire exchange, my wife is like, I think it would serve you really well. I think it would serve you really well if, as you're talking through these things, you explain that you feel this way based on your journey, and your path, because it'll give deeper context and it'll help the person understand where you're coming from. So I use it, this is my wife saying, as a joke when I say he's been born again. But that gives somebody the context to understand you may not be judging them. You may not be righteous or have an overwhelming opinion that if the person, or give off the perception, if that person doesn't receive it the same way you're promoting it, it could create conflict for you. And that's a fair point. This gentleman, super sophisticated and on the same wavelength as me. So he chalks himself up to being a wise ass, and because he's always making at least from the brief exchanges we've been having, he'll come back very witty at some of my comments. He calls me very cliche. I should rewrite the book because of my positive messages that I give out. But one of the things I said to him was, hey, as he referenced me as cliche, if we stay current and in the moment, we can do a lot more positive things together, right? Not too far back, not too far forward. But the combination of this highly sophisticated, deep conversation just about life and how we practice principles, and my wife being involved in the conversation, not separated, You know, he came into the house. It could have been very easy for my wife to be subdued, move to the background, maybe wash some dishes, laundry. There was a plethora of things going on operationally in the house. Plus, we were trying to get ready. She involved herself in the conversation. She came over and made herself part of the relationship. She came over and provided feedback and opinion and thought into the conversation. And not all of it aligned with what I was saying, because my wife and I are very different people. She's her, I'm me. And we don't believe in, we have a relationship that creates one. We're unified. There's unity there. We are totally in alignment with what we think we need to do. But she is her, I am me. And when we're together, we are three. Because she brings herself, I bring myself, and then ourselves combine, think about what Napoleon said, and create a third life force, if you will, that seems intangible, but that intangible force is the combination of my wife and I. Follow me. Think about your intimate relationships. Think about all your relationships. When you finish somebody's thought, when you know what that person is thinking, when you choose, oh man, I'm in a store, I'm on Amazon, this thing works well for me. I know that my significant other, my child, my friend, my colleague, my whomever else is that other person could benefit from this too. You're thinking about them because of why? What they told me. My wife, for example, having issues with her plantar. I am not very flexible. So I was looking online on Amazon and I found myself one of these stretchy things that you put, that shit fucking hurts, especially when you're 41 and haven't stretched in eons. But I got one of those things that you put on your foot. It helps you raise your foot up and stretch your hamstring or your leg all the way out straight. And it gets a good burn in your hamstring. It's also for your plantar. As soon as I saw that, I ordered one for my wife and for myself. Why? Because I knew, based off my connection with her, that she was having issues with her plantar. So I ordered one for her and one for myself. 1 + 1 = 3. 2 objects came out of that for her and for me, but it was predicated off of my deep connection with her that allowed me to think of her and execute something for her outside of me, outside of her, outside of self. 1 + 1 = 3. Apply that in all facets, right? As this gentleman and I are having a conversation, my wife is not just giving her input. She's listening to my input, is able to give constructive feedback after the conversation, real time, that says, loved your approach, love your message. And because I know you, this was her message to me, because I know what you're saying and I know what you've been through, it makes sense to me. My recommendation is lead with, at least preface with, I've been through these things, and I'm not necessarily, you don't have to say judging or what have you, but I'm not judging. I'm not really trying to push a narrative that I wouldn't apply or I haven't applied to myself based on past experiences. 1 + 1 = 3. From a self-value perspective, how are you expanding yourself? How are you optimizing all of your relationships that start within you to expand and change your equations in life to produce more value? I posted a short on Saturday thinking about the show. How do I make this more tangible, ironically enough? Posted a video of me jumping rope and talking about self-value. I got 2 random comments from 2 people who don't subscribe and who don't follow and have probably never seen the show. And the 2 comments I got were, I've just lost my job. Things have been really hard. I needed to see this. The other comment was something along the lines of, why did this hit harder than Dad with the belt? It resonated, right? It resonated. My ability to create a 60-second clip, which only got 120 something views, hit 2 people enough to possibly change their self-worth and their self-value. 1 + 1 = 3. If you find yourself in constant situations where your input and your output don't seem to match, or the output is not desirable for you, there's constant friction, you haven't gone in to create value within yourself so that when you include yourself in any equation, there's a harmonious force of power to multiply yourself simply through addition. 1 + 1 = 3. How do you do that? I believe your self-value is your spirit. My spirit is on 1,000. Why? Because my mind and body, which I believe create my spirit, are on 1,000. 1 + 1 = 3. I do my best from a self-value perspective to constantly channel what I believe helps me be the best version of myself. Meditation, prayer, faith, self-discovery, constantly manipulating. In IT world, information technology, we call that a process of garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. And if you're in a garbage in, garbage out mode, 1 + 1 = 1. You can't even get to 2 because your self-value is so selfish. All you see is you. In every equation, it's you, it's you, it's you. Therefore, limiting yourself, consolidating yourself into a box, into your shadow. It all comes together, man. Your vampire relationships. All of these things are fractured and aren't optimized because your self-value still, in your equation, you're only 1. Your mind is 1, your body is 1, your spirit is 1. None of them are connected. And because they're not connected, 1 + 1 = 3, you can't expand any of your relationships. And because you're all for self and you're just you, and 1 + 1 for you = 1, you can't attain. You can't conquer. You can't evolve. You stay still. And it's all predicated off simple self-value systems that allow you to expand or optimize your life and your mind, or your outcomes, I should say, your successes. For you, 1 + 1 = 1. We gotta start, you gotta start, I have been, and it's super, super difficult. It's a lot more difficult than you think because of your processes, garbage in, garbage out. So how do you change garbage in, garbage out? How do you expand 1 + 1 = 3? It has to be that every interaction you have, including with self, you have to see the reflection of not you, but what you're looking at, what you're involved in. So when I have interactions with my wife, I don't see myself in the interaction. I see my wife in the interaction. 1 + 1 = 3. And it also helps when I see things like, well, that laundry basket is just sitting there. That garbage is full. The food for dinner from dinner hasn't been packed up yet. Put in the fridge. The kids are running amok. It's late. They haven't started their nighttime routine. The dog needs to be walked. Are you executing on those things, or is your wife, hey, the basket's there, the food hasn't been put away, the garbage is piling up, the kids are running around doing backflips and it's 8:30 at night. Friction, conflict, no resolution. I've been getting my reviews at work. I've been meeting expectations. Why haven't I been promoted? Why haven't I gotten a raise? 1 + 1 = 1. My relationship with my friends, I walk away from that conversation drained. I didn't learn anything. It just took 2 hours of my life. And all I feel like is nothing's going on. Nothing positive has been produced. 1 + 1 = 1. Your self-value system is off and in a routine of selfishness, not selflessness, even with self. Because before you can be part of an equation where 1 + 1 = 3, you have to figure out how to connect yourself. Mind, body, creating your spirit. And you think you're spirited, and you think you want, and you think you're going to attain, but your mind and your body is broken. And your spirit is like, I know we can't do that. I got my sweater on. After this, I'm going for a 5-mile run. It's 4:38 a.m. right now. I've been up since 2:30. I say this every week. My mind and my body are connected. My spirit is on 1,000. My mind and my body are connected. Whatever my wife says to me, I don't interpret with any source or any type of negative source. I see the outcome that we are trying to drive to expand and make 1 + 1 = 3. My children, when they're frustrated and they're not getting what they want, I'm able to process, not overreact, not create conflict. I'm able to resolve conflict. 1 + 1 = 3. And all of these equations and all of these factors all go back to your self-value system. And what that self-value system is directly coincides with what the universe returns you. You are repeating garbage behaviors, so you are receiving garbage output. Your self-value is weak. You got to come up to 1,000, not 100, not 200, not 210, 333. My son's favorite number, 21. You got to be on 1,000. And you can't be on 1,000 until your self-value comes up. Otherwise, you're 1 for all the wrong reasons. Expand yourself. Create new equations. Look around you and make 1 + 1 = 3. Raw 4. May everything you desire come to you exactly as you deserve.